Gentlemen, welcome back to the shop. Today, a treat especial. New tool day. Makita cordless hammer drill driver, brushless. We're gonna see if she's got any fucking torque at all to her. Who the fuck knew Makita? Oh shit, boxes were so tough. Fuck. Time! Well, it's not over yet. Ooh, that baptism of blood by the Cockford Ollie digital fuck-o-matic got me questioning whether it's worthy of the tag. Or on second thought here, it is built to purpose, and you know, as a digital fuck-o-matic, it's engineered, well, at least fabric-cobbled, for rapid removal of extraneous digits, hence the digital. And I think it would do a fine job at removing extraneous phalanges. Okay, we're in. Time. I think I called it already. I bought this primarily for using. Surprise, surprise, on account of I got a whatchamacallit like you ain't never smelled. This fucking thing's awesome. It fits real nice in the hand, small. A little bit of a problem with this though is the charge air is 220 volts. You gotta click it into the mean bastard pixie receptacle in yonder wall, and haven't got around to cutting off the tail end of her and swapping the titty bit. So in this case, this is a nice tiny one in the hand. It does have the big batteries, so it should last a goodly long time. And also, they got rid of that jeezeless, god-awful green teal color. Some guys like that color on account of it being a built-in theft protection. But in this case, I think the black countenance is, you know, murdered right out. I kind of like it. It doesn't really pop. It might be hard to find if you lose it. The only thing left really is to kind of smooth out this sort of, well, what would you call that? Space age robotic pew pew look to her, you know, like a transformer pistol. You just get rid of all these ridges, then we'd actually have a grown-up's tool. And the overmolding, oh, sorry Kilroy, I tried. This is his new press. I can't get the jeezeless, what do you call that? The support. The front side he managed to do, but the back side just can't do it. So yeah, that's what it'll look like. Looks nice. Sorry, buddy. Onward and upward. One thing I do like about the TPE overmolding, the thermoplastic elastomer overmolding, in this case, attention to detail. There is no joint that is easily picked up. So when you're knocking this thing around, and it is very, very sticky, at least now. We'll see once it gets some grinding dust into her, but pretty sticky and well stuck on to boot. Now this is not an inexpensive drill on account of it having this brushless label. It is a hammer drill. However, we'll see the mechanism what hammers. So I would be surprised. Well, it'll take you a month of Sundays to do any drilling with this. And on account of its real small stature, it's not particularly stiff. You might say a little loose in the hips, which is surprising for a debutante. Maybe come out of Surrey or something. The other thing is the chuck is plastic. Fucking plastic chuck. Super disappointment there. And it's got some sort of carbon in there. The black doesn't look as good. It grays out when they put glass fiber reinforcing in there. So that would be carbon. And you'll see on cheaper tools, carbon impregnated, or even they'll say carbon fiber impregnated, but it's not the same thing as woven and epoxied carbon fiber. Totally different beast. behold the marketing routine, yeah? Anytime they get some new lingo, give her a while. Just like the vast majority of its brethren in prosumer tools that come out of China. You can see, got some Chinesium chints built right in here. Not too happy with this. The other thing drives me fucking bananas. They can't get the kerning on the font proper. You see this? That spacing is seriously, how much money are you spending on marketing and building designing the tool, manufacture, distribution, and you can't get the fucking printing right. We got our half A part clamshell decoupled, glass fiber reinforced PA6, so that's a nylon with the overmolding. Fuck all on a big ship for anchoring points, however. Some anchoring points for the TPE overmolding at the very bottom, and then where the rubber meets the load here, the receptacle tip. That's where shit breaks, is where the gorilla uses the tool, actuates the tool. And we can see a very thin cross section right across here. Why they've done that, there's nothing really in there. They could have thickened that up, but that is exactly where one would think it would crack right half in two. So this clamshell here definitely ain't no Venus on this one. Although we have all this kind of webbing in here, might be barfing on the wrong trolley. The thing is here, it's real in torsion. It's terrible, but really when you're using the tool, are you torquing on it? No, you want to keep it as stiff as steady as possible. So you're more worried about this bending backwards. And in that plane, it's actually extremely rigid. So yeah, well, I don't know about that. You know, a lot of times you do push on the battery casement. Yeah. Kind of well, it seems to be more of a light duty, very light tool, and maybe they've just made that for you know, holding in your hand for the entire day. Although we all know from previous experience as men that the most ergonomic handle is the one you got built right in. Because this is brushless, it's got a different arrangement than a typical brushed motor. So we have the what you could call the ESC, right? The controller, and it's all completely epoxy potted. We see the brain box in here, whole bunch of output capacitors underneath of that. You know, if you can just sort of look in the glare. And then we have into the switch itself, the trigger switch, a whole bunch of signaling, probably a potentiometer sending signals back to tell you how fast to chooch. And then we got all kinds of sense lines going to the Hall effect sensor board, and that measures where the rotor position is currently so that it can fire in the right, in the correct, well, the next row of magnets, so it knows where it is so it can fire correctly. And then we just have the big power going in. Part of the problem with these fancy uptown rigs is when they let the smoke out, you never know what to fix. You're fuckered. You got to replace the whole module. Hearteningly, however, and that seems to be the way it is going, and the way it generally blows up is either the motor, the trigger, or the ESC, the controller, whatever you want to call it. However, hearteningly, we see some of the component that we do see is actually a good name brand component. Pecker detector to the rescue again. It was a Nichicon. Now, we'll get into the motor. We see the gearbox here, plastique, glass fiber reinforcing. It's probably 50 or 60%. That helps with the temperature. It helps it manage high temp, of course, a gearbox. Well, here's the thing. You always think metal is far better than plastic. The thing is with plastic, might be nominally as strong, but it's not nearly as good because it's just not as good at a temperature. You know, this thing, it's getting hot, it's getting cold, it's getting hot, it's getting cold. I don't know. I would far prefer to see a metal gearbox, but they're getting to be like hen's teeth, just impossible to find. Fuck. So we're into the gearbox, and now we're out of the gearbox. Shit just went springing, fucking springing. So, yeah. Yay. They did add some molybdenum disulfide grease in there, so that's pretty cool. Especially, I think it helps a lot with the injection metal molding, because the surface finish isn't that great. So the molybdenum disulfide platelets really get into the seam to really get in to the pores, the open pores, or you know, the interstices of the grains, and really help out the lubricity. Now we'll get into the motor, and I see I was incorrect. There is no switching on this. This is just Hall effect sensors. So 3 Hall effect sensors, 1 for each phase. And a Hall effect sensor is just a magnetic field sensor. That's it. And we see in the rotor here some flat neodymium magnets. And then the 3 phases. So this essentially is a 3-phase motor, but it's pulsed on and off. And we can see each electromagnet. And every time it swaps electromagnets, this cogs over one time, and it's still in there good and proper. You see how hard it actually cogs. That well, the other thing about these motors will not. I had a question. A guy was trying to fix it, and a drill couldn't figure it out, and the reason was he was trying to run it without the clamshell together. Doesn't really want to go in too much, but we'll hold it in place. Maybe hold this back bearing, see if we can't lose a fingy. Eat. Doesn't like that. Good. Okay. Let's get the battery out and actually get her apart before I completely dicker it. I know, I should know better, but the thing is, these bearings need to be located in, and this needs to be located in the case proper wise, because there's always like an indexing slot or something that indexes in here and locks it in. If it's not locked in, it's gonna rub and it's not gonna work proper. So if you get a drill and it's working fine, you take it apart. Well, why would you do that? Because if it ain't broke, fix it till it is. But you know, I don't know, you're tuning it up, or you want to see how it works or whatever, and you get it back together and it's just not right, chances are it's a little tab of plastique screwing you right over. The trigger itself is an Omron, nice Japanese brand. It feels robust. No snap action at the first, so there is no full on. It's the potentiometer in here telling the controller that you're in full chooch. It's not actually getting full battery voltage right to the, you know, there's no contacts in here. Nice heavy detent on that little tab, what makes you go reverse forward. So that's nice, because you don't, you know, sometimes that gets knocked out of place, especially if you're hammer drilling, which is more like vibration drilling. But and amongst this random pile of parts, not to worry, we'll let her set on the healing bench for long enough where we lose it to the point where we can't get her back together. Well, we won't know what parts are missing. That's the problem until we get her back together. So on the clutch here, real small little bearing dogs, little small parts. This is not a big drill, not at all. I do not like this. This chuck is funny. They have some German on here. Now, I don't know if that is a Hollywood German just to make us think that this is a Vida chuck, or if it's maybe, well, it says Makita, so it might be a Alvida Zame chuck, Chinesium. Hard to say. One thing I do not like, you look at these jaws here. So, well, I don't know if you'll be able to see that. I'll have to point it out. But if you look right down in here, they have a slut here. So they're contacting on 2 points. Now, this has been ground, but it's been ground. Looks like a die grinder got in there. And just knocked that little edge off. The very tippy, yeah, you sort of see it, the very tippy top. Then if you look down in there, yeah, you see that's ground, but that's just ground with like a stone or something. And you can see on this guy, it's barely touched at the very tippy top. and it's ground right down to a fucking nub on the bottom. So I don't have a lot of confidence in this chuck. Once we get her back together, we'll be able to check the total indicator run out and see if it's got a factory fucker. Oh, and of course, one last thing here. Jesus, what a pile. The NSA tracking tag. Yeah, thank you very much, lads. Still doing fine. Zuckerberg. Cranberry farming suction hose. I'll check your Facebook feed tomorrow. You're going to get an ad for Green Line hose and fitting. Okay, we're going to try. Well, no, there is no try. We are going to get this back together. Oh, for frog snacks. Is it coffee time yet? Is it 15 minutes to coffee time yet? Whoo, that was a trip down the rabbit hole. Getting that back together. What a pain in the cunning linguals. Also, per standard shop procedure, got some parts left over. Just a chunk of something what broke off. Piece of shit. Okay, will she fire or will she fart half a turn and let the smoke up? Fooled him again. Okay, let's give her first hot supper. Break her in good and proper. Where'd I go? Where'd I go? Chuck feels nice and smooth. Oh yeah, we gotta check the run out of this thing, don't we? 1/2-inch drill bit into 1/2-inch aluminium. Oh, for fuck's sakes. We got her in screw. We want to drill. Okay, that's in 2. So that's where you'd want to drill aluminium, but it does torque out. I don't really like that stall out feature. Of course, it's not a fault, it's a feature. And then that's just too slow for fucking words there. Jesus. In betwixt the between gear, that's weird. Yeah, 500 on the low end, 1700. So you'd want to see that more at around 900, I think. So that's how they're getting the nut busting torque, is they're slowing her right down to 500. That's pretty fucking low. Yeah, it's pretty good actually. Minus the movement on my end. Probably around 0.06 millimeters, which is 1.5 thou run out. So that, yeah, despite the look of those inner jaws, is pretty friggin' good. Overall build quality, price, torque, no good for drilling big holes in metal. This is more of a secondary, I think. This isn't going to replace your primary drill, your Big Bertha. It is going to just lighten the load for doing pilot holes and this, that, the other thing. Even though it is brushless, the gear ratio isn't correct to really have the speed and torque that you want in order to drill, well, you know, for metal fabrication. If you're some sort of filthy wood elf, this might be the drill for you, but not a bad little secondary drill. Thanks for watching. Keep your dick in a vice.